there, welcome back. This is me working on assignment 12 of the Evolve Artist program and just open a new canvas pad. It's fun to open new things. Although sometimes I get these weird stringy, what are they called? Just strings on the end of the canvas. And I've been using literally the same piece of black carbon paper. That's what it's called, carbon paper. For the entire time. And I actually end up, this is me from the future commenting on this, but I end up using that one piece of carbon paper for every single one of the images that we do for block one, which is partly me being very pack ready, maybe like just trying to save material. I've been trained to save material, not waste things, so I don't like to waste. But also, because it actually works out better that way, I find that when I open a new piece of carbon paper and use that to trace things, the lines come out too dark. And of course I could use a lighter touch, yeah, I probably should. But I find that using used carbon paper to do the transfers actually works out really well because the lines turn out very light and they don't contaminate the paint so much. Which it's okay if you're painting something that's shadow, but especially if you're using extreme light paint, and then you have got a really, really dark carbon line, that carbon can get into the paint, which is annoying. But anyways, as usual, we start with tracing everything out and then laying down the base colors, we start with the shadow shades, extreme, moderate, and then the light shades, moderate light, which is what's going on right now, and then moderate light, and then extreme light. And then after that, we do the gradients. And then after that, we do the reflections and highlights, and then also some shadows, I guess. Although we already used the word shadows, so they don't really say that. But anyways, so this is the second, I believe, assignment that does the reflections and highlights step, which is great. We don't learn anything really new. We're just practicing something that we learned last time. Which is really useful because you can't always get something the first time you try it. So it's really helpful to go through the entire process with one new step. I think when I was doing this assignment, though, I was a little bit tired that day, so I was rushing a little bit and wasn't quite as precise as I would like to be. Sometimes I found that when I do a simple block one assignment, it usually takes me minimum 5 hours and maximum anywhere from 7 to 9+ hours. That, though, includes everything. So like getting all the material out, transferring the image, doing the painting, using up the leftover paint to do some other things. I don't like I said, I don't like waste, so I have a sketchbook and sometimes I will use the leftover paint to do a few more exercises, and then cleaning up at the end. So all of that, all together, will take anywhere between 5 to 9+ hours. And the ideal situation is I give myself a full day. I usually do my painting on the weekends, and then I'll just pick a full day and then probably listen to an audiobook or a podcast or something like that and just paint. And it's very meditative. It's super relaxing. And especially when you give yourself permission to take your time and focus on all the details and try to get everything right and just, don't rush it. But that doesn't always work out. Sometimes I feel a little bit of pressure to get these assignments done and keep moving forward. Or, I don't have as much time budgeted as I should. And so I rush a little bit. So this painting ultimately didn't turn out quite as clean as I would have liked it to be, especially the gradients, as you're going to see later. But it's still a useful vehicle for learning. And what I like to do is, after doing the painting, one thing that the head instructor, Kevin, or founder, I guess, is his actual title. One thing that Kevin told us to do in one of his videos, I think it was one of the, not the lesson videos, but one of the workshop videos, the supplemental workshop videos that they do, he mentioned that after you finish a painting, you should ask yourself, almost immediately, what would I have done differently? Because that's a really great learning moment. You make mistakes or you make some choices that are maybe not the best choice in the moment, and then if you ask yourself afterwards, what would I have done differently? You can really learn a lot from that. So in my case, in this particular painting, what I would have done differently is probably give myself a little bit more time and really do a good job on it, paying attention to all the details and stuff. Speaking of workshops, by the way, one of the things about the Evolve program is that they have near weekly workshops on a multitude of different topics. So we've got our lesson videos where Kevin, generally it's Kevin, does a demonstration of the concept that he wants us to practice in the painting. But there are also live weekly classes, usually on Monday afternoons, where the head instructor, Piper, will do a demo or a live critique or a Q&A, or just there are a lot of different topics that they cover, and you can really learn a lot. And they usually record these weekly live classes and put them inside of our student website, and you can log in and see it there. And aside from the weekly live classes with Piper, there are also live Q&As with two of the other instructors, Dimitri and Alex, who I think Dimitri does his on Mondays and Alex does hers on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. But anyways, so there's plenty of opportunity to go and ask teachers questions live. You can just sit quietly and listen to them talk and share and answer other students' questions, or you can ask your own questions. You can type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and talk to them. You can get on video and show them what you're working on and get advice right then and there. And then in addition to that, you can also schedule one-on-ones with Piper and Dimitri through their scheduling website. And those are usually 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but they fill up pretty fast. So if you're interested in doing something like that, you have to hop on it and schedule time in advance. And if you've got an immediate pressing question and you don't have the time to hop on a one-on-one or attend the Q&As, or you just need to know the answer, it's not that hard. You can either post your question in Facebook if it's kind of a general question that anybody can answer, including your peers, or you can email the instructors through their instructor email, and they usually get back to you within a day or two. So they're really responsive to student questions, which I super appreciate because I often don't know what I'm doing. So it's really helpful to ask questions. Like I said, I'm a beginner. Anyway, so at this point in the painting, I've laid down all of the base colors. Now we're working on gradients. Gradients are still kind of hard. I mean, it's just a practice thing. It's like when you're learning an instrument and you're practicing being on tune, say you're learning violin and you don't know where to put your fingers on the fingerboard. That's just something you have to practice. Unlike a guitar, which has frets, violin doesn't have frets, so you have to develop muscle memory for how to finger the notes. And I think it's the same thing with painting, is that you just have to practice doing gradients. There's no replacement for practice. So there's that. And then I'm just cleaning up the edges here. Sharp edges really help to give you that illusion of three-dimensionality. I think this painting actually did take me 2 days. It's been a while, like I said. So sometimes I let it dry and then I fill it in again. But the problem with, one thing that I've learned is if you want to take more than 1 day to do this painting, be careful with the gradients, because gradients really only work best when the paint is wet. If you let the paint dry and then you try to do a gradient, it's not going to work. It's going to be all streaky and weird and awkward. And the better way to do gradients is to do them while the paint is wet. So I try to, I don't think I even recoded the base colors here with the gradients. And that pear gradient is a little too thin. So another thing too about gradients is you really want to make them as thick as you can without, breaking anything. So that when you blend the edges, they work properly. Like that pear, it's a little too much. And then same thing with the cylinder gradient. Now that I look back on this, these gradients are really a little off. But that's a good sign, right? Because if you can see what you're doing wrong and you can see that doesn't look right, then that means that your eye is improving. And I think that's actually one of the biggest things you have to develop when you're an artist is your eye. You have to be able to see what's wrong, and that's often more of an intuitive thing than an objective conscious thing. It's similar to what's the other It's similar to, I can't remember what I was going to say now. I was thinking like musicians or something like that, but not really. Yeah, never mind. I don't know what I was going to say. But yeah, I think it's just developing an eye. Oh, language learning. That's the metaphor that I was going for. Yeah, when you're learning a language, especially if you care about pronunciation, one of the things that you have to develop is your ear. I mean, you can memorize as much vocabulary as you want. You can memorize a bunch of rules about where to put your tongue and how to shape your lips. That's fine, but in the end, you have to develop an ear for the language so that you know when something sounds off and when something sounds right, whether it's pronunciation or grammar. I mean, a lot of times as an English native speaker, people will ask, well, why is this a certain way? And I'll be, I don't know. It just sounds right. It just sounds right to me. Like when I talk, I use this particular grammar construction. I can't explain to you the underlying reasons for it because I'm not a English literature expert. But okay, so another problem with this painting, going back to the painting, is that that shine on the pear didn't do that quite right. Looks like it has a welt. I should have expanded the shadow around it a little bit more. But there you have it, the pear. And that is it. Remember to be creative and see you in the next video.